Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a video that I do not really have a script for. I'm not sure what I'm going to call this series, however I'm sure I'll have an okay name. You know, you could look at the title, I'm sure I came up with something by this time. However, the one thing I do know is I have been playing a ton of hardcore recently, and I have come to really enjoy it. And it's something that I didn't think that I would ever really enjoy, personally. So I kind of wanted to talk about it, and maybe hopefully get someone, maybe one or two of you guys to try it as well, because I think it's a really unique and fun experience that is kind of overlooked, despite being a bit more popular, especially in the World of Warcraft scene right now. I personally have a lot more experience playing a PoE, Path of Exile. Me and some of my buddies have been playing a lot of hardcore recently, and I'm sure that's what a lot of the gameplay up on screen is going to be right now. However, I think both really are super different, and both have things that are super unique and fun to them. These are also the only two that I've played, or at least in terms of hardcore. So keep that in mind. I guess I do have sort of a narrow perspective, but I have a lot of love for what I have played. So I hope that doesn't take away from what I have to say. To give a bit of background, I am someone who loves a lot of these types of games, especially World of Warcraft. However, it's a lot more accurate to say I love the idea of the game. Me personally, I have had a rough time kind of just trying to get into it. I've played for WoW, I've played both retail and classic. On classic, I got to about level 26, and on retail, I got to about the same level, about maybe 25, 24 or so. However, I had a hard time really getting motivated to complete these levels and, getting the 6th tier, getting to 120. And before I'd played a little bit of Path of Exile too, and I think I'd gotten to maybe around level 45, which really in the big picture is not very far at all. I think my hardcore character right now, as of this video, my highest hardcore character is around 48, so I've now gone past my original playthrough on hardcore. And I think what the regular modes were really lacking in terms of, keeping me motivated, I think the biggest thing was just it didn't really feel like an accomplishment. Getting the next level, getting a new piece of gear that was stronger, it didn't feel like an accomplishment. It just felt like something that was bound to happen eventually. It was something that was just part of the process. I compare it to playing Destiny, where when I would tell my friends, hey, you should play this game, I would always tell them the hardest part was just leveling up to max level. The fun part was endgame, grinding for certain pieces of gear and knowing what you're grinding for. That was really the fun part, whereas the beginning part is kind of the rough part where they give you time to learn mechanics and all that stuff, but going from a green to a blue in Destiny doesn't really mean shit, and even to an extent, the beginning of going from blues to purples, it feels cool in the moment, but it doesn't really have an impact on your gameplay. You might kill things a little bit faster, but it's not a difference maker. It's not something that feels so, it doesn't feel like a great accomplishment. With hardcore, that is not the case. Every level feels earned. Every level, every ability you put into your skill tree, every piece of armor that's slightly better, now does it feel earned. It feels like it matters. It feels like I need 20 more armor or 10 more shield. When I was playing World of Warcraft hardcore, there was a moment when I was kind of walking around in the area, and it's kind of a hardcore server, so everyone's playing hardcore, and people were saying in chat, hey, this merchant is selling an item that he doesn't normally sell, and it's super useful. And I went over there and I actually bought it because I needed the armor and I needed the increase to my spirit and all that stuff. Which is something I think normally I just wouldn't do in the normal playthrough. If it's not hardcore, why would I spend, a quarter or a fifth of my entire net worth on a green item that I'm going to replace in 5 or 6 levels? Those 5 or 6 levels, they're given. They're something that you can kind of take for granted, and you know that you're going to get there eventually, whereas in hardcore, you want to spend every dime that you have, because you might die and lose all your money, and it doesn't really matter, how much money you saved or how efficient you were with your spending, because it's gone. Another thing I think hardcore does super well is keeping the worlds artificially populated. And what I mean by that is, when I was playing WoW, those first starting zones were always populated. And sometimes they were overpopulated. It was hard to, get tags on certain enemies. It was hard to get the loot that you really needed because everyone was fighting over it. But that felt cool. It felt like it was alive. People were playing, It felt like you were playing something that everyone else was playing, and it makes the experience more fun. When you flex your levels in the town, there's people to flex your levels onto, which I think is such a fun part of MMO, you know? You getting the gear, half of it is being able to go into the main town, going into Ironforge or Stormwind, and flexing what you have. And it becomes more of a flex in hardcore, because people know what you had to do to get through that, and, you know, sort of the difficulties of it. When you reach a higher end town and it feels almost empty, I think I forgot what I said, I got to somewhere around the 20s in Classic. And when you get to a new area, it is crazy. Just when you get to a later game, mid-game area, and there's no one there, it really feels like you have gotten to a place where other people have struggled to get to, and it really is the case. I think it took me, I'm on my 4th or 5th life for hardcore on World of Warcraft, and it's taken me a long time to get there. And it was a battle, but getting there feels a lot more rewarding because of that. And you also, it's a learning process, you know, games like Getting Over It, there's that new one that's like Only Up or something like that, and I mean, there's tons of games like this, where you're constantly going Jump King, you're constantly going up, and you can be reset in an instant. But getting reset isn't really the end of the world, because you're still retaining that knowledge that you built up from playing those early levels, and doing those early levels are faster and faster and faster. I have a buddy on PoE who he's, you know, died a couple times, but the trade-off to that is he is by far the fastest person at leveling. I mean, he can get a character up to level 40 in PoE in, I mean, a day, which, you know, I'm sure speedrunners can laugh at that, but I mean, for us casual players, that's a pretty sweet feat, and it's pretty useful if you're gonna die, you know? I think, you know, there's other guys, especially the newer guys, you could just tell when they're playing. We get new guys to play with us, and they take a long time to really wrap their head around the game and to really push forward and get those next levels going. And I think on our first playthrough, when we were first starting hardcore, it took us maybe like 4 or 5 days to get to level 40, which granted is maybe slow to some people, but when you're really taking your time and you're valuing your life, you want to take your time and not rush things. And before this, you know, hardcore is something I would never have seen myself playing, which I think a lot of people are in that same boat, you know? I think a lot of people would not even consider playing hardcore, but I think a lot more people would enjoy it if they actually gave it the chance, and I think there's a lot of great things to it, and a lot of things that just make it a lot more fun. And it's kind of opened my mind, so I wonder if, you know, I mean, I don't really think it could work, but I wonder if, you know, in a world, if there is a world where a hardcore MMO could work, you know, where everyone is hardcore, maybe the default, you know, of course, every game would have a game where, you know, it's main hardcore, but, you know, you could possibly go regular, that way you could practice builds and stuff like that. But I wonder if a game could survive like that, being only hardcore, because I think a lot of it is just people, it would be hard for people to really commit to that, because dying is rough. You know, the lows that are felt when you die, or not even when you die, but when a friend dies. You know, I had a buddy die, and it was like, we were the 2 highest levels out of our group, and when he died, it was like, I'm just gonna stop playing, because 1, I don't want to get too far ahead of my friends to where we could never play together, and 2, if I just die by myself, I'm just gonna get reset. It's better to wait for, you know, your friends or an ally to get up there to both make it easier and make it more fun. So it's kind of a bummer in that way, and it can really suck having to imagine starting from the beginning, especially when you've done it 4 or 5 or 6 times. But the highs that are felt when you defeat a boss, you know, the pressure going into a boss room, you feel like, you know, you want to check all of your gear, check all of your equipment. It feels a lot more like an event, you know, something that you need to lock in and focus on. And when you beat it, you just feel way more accomplished, whereas in non-hardcore, you know, it just felt like something that was given. It felt like something that was just, you know, you were entitled to that win, because even if you lost 4, 5, 6 times in a row, you just clock back in, just go right back in. I know there's negatives to it. WoW has, you know, resurrecting, and, you know, you lose armor and all that stuff, which is certainly frustrating, but it doesn't compare to the frustration of having to restart completely. And in games like World of Warcraft, I really feel like it adds to a lot of the systems it has. On both of my playthroughs, both on Classic and Retail, I didn't really dive into professions, and I even wanted to, and I just didn't really know how. And I didn't really feel, maybe this is on me too, I can admit, but I just didn't really feel the need to look into it or learn it. You know, I played a Warlock both times, and the go-to would be probably Alchemy and Herbalism. But I just didn't really feel the need to, because why do I need 19 more defense, or why do I need plus, you know, 20 or 30 shadow damage, or all these buffs that the potions give me? am I really going to spend an hour grinding and running around picking up these plants just for some slight buffs that I might just die anyways because, you know, teammates could pull things incorrectly or, you know, all this stuff. Whatever, you just go back to the graveyard. Realistically, you spend 5 minutes if you die. So if you don't spend an hour grinding for plants and all this stuff, you know, you could die a bunch of times before you really start to, like, get into the negatives of losing time and efficiency. But in hardcore, you don't have that luxury. You know, you can't just die to save time. If you die, all your time is gone. And I kind of enjoyed that because I constantly found myself looking up, okay, where's this plant? Where can I go forage it? Okay, I need to go get it so I can get health pots or I can get iron skin potions. And that was really enjoyable because I thought that, you know, normally I wouldn't do that stuff. Normally I would just ignore it. But because this is my one and only life, you kind of feel more inclined to go out and grab all that stuff. Honestly, this video is already going a lot longer than I had intended to as well. So that's kind of what happens when you don't write a script out. I'm kind of just babbling into the mic. However, this is what I want to leave you guys with, and this is my question that I kind of want you guys to think about. Would you play a game, an MMO, that was only hardcore? Would you consider it? Would you play one? Because I don't think one could ever succeed. I don't think if a company, if Blizzard, if Riot, if any game company that was well established, FromSoft, they came out with an MMO that was 90% of the player base was hardcore, I personally don't think it could do well. But, you know, it's funny because even though I think that, I think hardcore is an amazing, amazing system. And I think there's so much cool and so many great benefits that come from it. And honestly, the biggest one being the artificial player base, making these early game zones feel so alive all the time because people are constantly reloading and coming back to them. I just wonder if a game could ever survive like that. And I'm curious if you would ever play a game like that. So, you know, definitely let me know. I'm really curious. That's about all I got, I guess. You know, I could say more, but I didn't intend for this video to be as long as it is. It's already longer than I want. And I don't really have any gameplay for any of this shit. I just started babbling into the mic. I have a little bit of PoE gameplay on my second character. But I don't even have any World of Warcraft. I talked a lot about World of Warcraft. But even now I'm babbling, so fuck it. But, yeah, I really enjoy hardcore. I think hardcore is a place in it, and I think from now on I'm gonna play a lot more hardcore in MMOs. I hope the official Blizzard WoW MMO or WoW hardcore does well. I'm definitely gonna play it, but I hope it does well, and I hope they do it well too. Oh, and honestly, there's so much. Oh, dude, there's so much I didn't talk about. Honestly, like there's the whole stuff with like the disconnect. Like there's so many things that like okay with Diablo. Like there was that viral clip of that guy who died at like level 100, which is max level because of disconnect. Because when you disconnect, it still takes your character's body 20 seconds to leave the zone. And the reason why they do that is for games like PoE, they don't do that. When you disconnect, your character immediately leaves the zone. And what that does is like if you're about to die, shit, you know, just pull the plug, all of a sudden your character's safe, and it kind of ruins the integrity of the game, which I do agree. However, Diablo, the way they do it is, you know, if you disconnect, your body is there for 20 seconds, and you have no inputs going into your character, so chances are he is going to get mollywopped by, you know, any type of mob. And there's a billion things like that that really ruin hardcore, and that really are a problem. You know, it sucks because a lot of that is on the dev side and on the hardware side. I mean, there's like glitches in World of Warcraft right now where there's like bridges you can fall through and people will die of fall damage for that. And you could argue, you know, hey, maybe it's a game knowledge thing, you should know about these bridges and all that stuff, but I don't know, if it's a glitch, it's, you know, I feel like it's just not intended. And there's a million things like that, you know. There's quest lines in World of Warcraft, because it's not meant to be a hardcore game. There's quest lines where you literally die, it's scripted deaths, and if you don't know and you take these quest lines, you're done. So, there's a lot of stuff like that that just wouldn't work. But I don't know. If there was a game that was only hardcore, I just think that there would be a lot of unique benefits to it. However, there would be a lot of unique negatives as well. You know, I always say, like, hardcore has a lot higher highs, but much lower lows. Whereas, you know, non-hardcore is just a more consistent playthrough. But, I don't know. I see people, especially in Diablo now, I see people getting to that level 80 to 90 range and kind of tapping out. Because they don't really see a point, you know? It's like they did everything that there is to do. Why grind the next 10 levels? Why grind for the best in slot armor when you don't really need it, you know? When you especially with like we've been playing Destiny. You know, I got to max level in Destiny. I got fucking really good gear and all that stuff. I would say like 90% of the way there. You know, it's strong gear, definitely not best in slot, but it's like third best in slot. You know what I mean? But realistically, what do I need best in slot gear for when am I going to use that best in slot gear for? There's nothing more to grind. Once you have the best, you can stop playing. You're done, right? Whereas like for hardcore, it's like, well, shoot, you know, if you don't have the best in slot, is the journey really complete? And you know, it's not about getting the best in slot gear to get more gear. It's about getting the best in slot gear to say you did it in hardcore. And I think that's kind of cool and unique and something that I've been really drawn to recently. So yeah, I don't know. Those are my thoughts. I really enjoy hardcore. If you know, if you've never played hardcore, you know, you should think about it. Think about when maybe the World of Warcraft one when it comes out. That was really great. Maybe when PoE 2 comes out, maybe try that out. Hell, maybe even try a Diablo one out, even though I personally have not given Diablo Hardcore a try. I don't really think I will. I think I'll just play PoE. But, yeah, that's about all I got. These are my random ass thoughts. This is what happens when I don't get a script. I just start babbling into the mic, and I barely even stopped the recording. I really just talked for minutes straight and said a bunch of nonsense. So hopefully you guys appreciated listening to it. If you did, I appreciate you. But that's about all I got. Leave me a comment on your opinion. Seriously, I actually want to know. But other than that, catch you guys. Have a great one. Expect a Dwellers review coming out soon, because I did do the Amori one, and I was super grateful, and I had a great time doing that. Oh my gosh. So, I'm babbling, I'm going on, I'm rambling. Goodbye, see ya, have a great day.